Hello, and welcome to Shades of Pleasure, a podcast celebrating pleasure, sexuality, and the vibrant, inclusive spectrum of love, gender, and relationships. I'm your host, Mo, and with me are my co-hosts, Melissa, Wayne, and Kelly. And together we hope to dismantle tropes that no longer suit us and change the narrative towards more authentic living. What are we talking about today?
I don't know, but I do, when I asked that question of Melissa of, hey, what's that like to do this Reiki stuff? Like, how is that draining? Because I've just in the last, I don't know, a few weeks been talking with friends and family and stuff about how draining this kind of work can be. But, also talking to people about how they people are doing this kind of work in their relationships and with their families and stuff all the time. So that's just sort of where my head is right now. Like how how all this emotional work is actually work and it can be draining, and how to kind of replenish yourself or keep yourself healthy. That's where my brain is. I don't know how we turn that into a topic or if that's even an appropriate topic, but like that's the stuff that's on my mind right now. What's on everybody else's mind?
I'm happy to talk
Sorry,
about whatever is on y'all's
I
mind.
haven't been paying attention.
She was just
Kelly
talking
was
about
just saying,
doing Reiki and how much energy you uses
hmm
it. But
and
Sorry,
like
Kelly. I was
how much
dealing with
energy.
Zoe. She's here with us today.
Guys,
I'm so sorry.
no, I was saying I don't even know that this is like the kind of topic that we want to talk about, but that is like me asking that question is the kind of stuff that my brain's been on. Like, hey, what is this like for you? How draining is that? And talking about how what we do can be draining, but also the fact that people are doing this in their relationships all the time. Not even if they're
Mhm.
not a therapist or a coach, like they're people are doing draining things all the time. And like with the
Yes.
political climate and with the economic climate and all this stuff, I think people are really, really drained, and so that's what's been on my mind, but I don't know how we turn that into a topic here. But
I have
Mhm.
plenty of things to say about that topic. I was
okay,
just
well,
I
if
was
y'all
just
want
talking about that, but because you brought it up, Kelly, I want to know like your experience. What's happening for you? Are you experiencing some of this like in your own body or in your own life?
yes, yes, very much. And I've kind of been seeing people I haven't seen in a long time, or spending time with family members I haven't seen in a long time. And you kind of check in, like, well, how are you doing? What's your work like? What's this like? And even some of my clients even sent me things where they're sort of like funny about, a therapist totally burnout kind of thing. And I guess I guess saying burnout is too generic of a term. But anyway, I've been having interesting conversations with people about it. And I understand that I'm a therapist, so I experience it, but everybody else is experiencing it in their own way. And it's just led to interesting conversations.
Yeah. Um, I think, I mean, anyone who knows my story knows that I've burnt out on this work multiple
Mhm.
times and have learned. I've been doing this private practice iteration of this work for 20 years now. And I closed my practice in 2014 and reopened it in 2017, I think, and completely changed my model because it wasn't sustainable. So I think that um, this is not news, right? This is something that we all talk about, right? That this work is great and something that I, have, told all of you or encouraged all of you all to like work on is like knowing what you can what you can handle and what is like the limit for you, right? And the beautiful thing about working privately and not for someone else is you get to make your own hours. And I know a lot of us do like 3 days on, 2 days off. Those 2 days are for like administrative stuff or all of the other things that we love to do, and then we have the weekend as well. Um and does that work? Maybe to a certain extent, but I think it's really important to acknowledge the emotional labor that goes into this type of work. Like Melissa was saying a little earlier about the type of work that she's kind of doing now as well, like more spiritual work, is it's a different kind of showing up for her clients. So I think learning that and then knowing that about yourself becomes really important in this field.
Yeah, I guess I think I'm thinking of it in even a broader sense than not just in this field. Just this is stuff that people are dealing with in their own way, whether it's in their relationships, whether it's in their job, whether it's just their life. Like, I think that's sort of what I'm hearing that people are experiencing, and
Yeah.
so I'm thinking of it
It's
in broader
funny.
sense.
I have this example that I shared yesterday um, about a couple that I've been working with, and they're kind of going through the same thing. And when I sit in the session with them, I experience it too because they're so burnt out, they're expecting me. There's a lot of pressure on me to do that sort of like emotional labor for them. And so yesterday I was having a peer consultation about this client, and um it really occurred to me in that moment that it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to feel it too. We're going to feel it too when our clients are experiencing that burnout in their own relationships and they show up in our office. We're now part of that dynamic. So we're going to
Mhm.
experience it too. And it's a good way to reflect to them. If we're experiencing it working with them, they must be experiencing it in their own lives.
Yeah,
I don't know. Does that resonate? Does that what you
yeah,
are you
and
talking about?
just I guess helping folks really have self-awareness around it and name it and figure out how to get resource or figure out how to ask for help or whatever it is they need to do. So, because I think everybody's kind of feeling a little burnout on life right now. And the whole world is, honestly.
Yeah, what are you telling your clients? Like what are they coming up with like solutions? I'm always curious to hear more ideas.
I mean, I think for a lot of my clients, it's they sort of know, just the same way that like we know it's better to choose one type of food over another type of food, but it's not what we do all the time, right? And so I think my clients sort of know what their things are. For some, it's that they're not being as creative as they typically are, or for others, it's that they are, doom scrolling too much, or they don't have a good you know, a good
Like
sleep
outlet.
pattern, and they're not doing
Mhm.
anything about the sleep pattern. And so
Yeah.
there, it almost seems like you have to be so diligent about it, and people are tired, and that's the last thing you want to do is make things harder on yourself or try to change things, but things aren't changing unless you put the effort in for that.
Right. Like if you're adding another thing on your list to make your life
Exactly.
like more relaxed, you're like, oh, if I just go to the gym, or oh, if I just cook healthy, or
Exactly.
right. And it ends up being more work sometimes.
Exactly. And so I think people do know what it is, but it's sort of like that whole idea that a fish doesn't know it's in water until you take it out of water. So you kind of have to help people name what it is that's keeping them there, and because you just get you orient normal, like you recalibrate things to normal, whatever it is that you're experiencing every day. And so this burnout phase can be your new normal, and it just takes some self-awareness, and I don't know that people can get there on their own. Some can maybe, but I don't know, does that answer your question though?
Hmm. I think so.
I
Given
mean,
that we're relationship therapists, I'm curious how maybe this is for you, Kelly, but I'm curious how I guess burnout is showing up like relationally, how you're noticing that with your couples. Like, um, yeah, what does that look like? What is their self-awareness
well, I think
telling
there's
them?
less tolerance. People are a lot less tolerant when they're feeling burnt out. And so, things that they've let slide before, things that have not bothered them, like their fuses are a lot shorter, right? And so, but that feels atypical to the other person because like, whoa, I'm usually like this. I don't know why all of a sudden it's a problem now. And
Mm,
so I think, reintroducing boundaries and reestablishing agreements and really talking about the division of labor, whether it's physical, emotional, whatever. But it just seems like people are really on edge. And so to name that and sort of bring it back to the basics is one of the first places I go.
So is that so are you saying that like it kind of is not necessarily factors like within the relationship that is necessarily causing the burnout, but just like other like external life factors that then kind of
Both.
reduces your oh, you say both.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, both. But I mean, what you're saying, yeah, I mean, I think this is where it manifests. This is where it shows up. Because if you're
Hmm.
burnt out on life and if you're burnt out on a bunch of things, then your partner often or your close relationships, I know like for me personally, this isn't even about clients, this is just for me personally. I sort of shut down because I don't have the bandwidth for other people, especially if I've done a lot of clients in a day. I'm like, I am talked out. I'm done. And so it makes me isolate a little bit or pull away a little bit. And so like, okay, and I know and I recognize that in some of my clients, right? And so I kind of take some of what I'm experiencing and check it out because I do think it's a pretty common human experience. That I don't think you have to be a therapist to have that reaction to overwhelm or extra burden or extra stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But then it does. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, my experience, getting to know people and seeing this burnout with the patient or the clients that we see. And they're, not saying that there's like a certain personality type, but, and not to make it about gender, but I think there are certain types of people that go the extra mile for people, um, or that like overcompensate in a relationship where maybe one partner is not showing up as much or not showing up in the way that they want them to, so they start like overcompensating in those areas unbeknownst to them that that's what they're doing, because it starts small, right? It starts small and then the heat turns up slowly. It's like the frog example where, you put the frog in warm room temp water and then you turn it up slowly and the next thing you know, the frog's like can't survive it, right? It happens so slowly that it's insidious. You start a little here, you start a little there, and the next thing you know is you're exhausted and you don't know why. And then you start looking back and you start looking at all the behaviors. And that's when people start showing up in our offices like, how did we get to this dynamic here? And a lot of times, I think the blame is put on the person that's not doing as much showing up. But it's important for people to also recognize that the tendency to overcompensate. Like, people socialized as women in our culture are socialized to take care. Whether we realize it or not, that's something that is deeply ingrained in our conditioning and maybe even biologically. Like I don't know where it starts and where it ends, the nature versus nurture piece, but it's like what I see often. The other thing is, it's important to talk about trauma in this, because trauma can cause people to want to overcompensate, can make it feel like I have to show up in this way. Um, and in our culture, people that are socialized as men typically don't have to do that as much. Right. And it can be very exhausting. Um, to have to show up and to show up in ways that that the other people don't have to show up, right? So we're not just talking about male and female here, we're talking about um, all kinds of minorities that have to work that much harder to show up in spaces, in relationships, and that kind of like systemic trauma causes so much burnout.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're explaining it a lot better than I was trying to because at the whole trauma piece, I wasn't even thinking about that part of it. And you're right. That's huge.
Yeah, that is huge, Mo. I think that was a really spot on point of
Yeah.
like the layers of just the burnout. It's like your own personal burnout plus, the relational burnout plus the systemic burnout. It's just the trauma, burnout. And Um, but also like just when there is trauma present or has been present. I mean, just that, like just addressing the trauma, just facing any kind of trauma too. Not, I know you were talking more like a trauma response type thing, per your systemic or relational experiences, but also just when you choose to like face and talk or face the traumas in your life, like that can lead to burnout. I mean, that's just much more exhausting than we're kind of dealing with general relationship stuff, but when there's like actual trauma there too, that can just be much more exhausting. So, yeah, it's a good point.
That sounds exhausting.
When you first brought up the topic though, Kelly, it made me think about like I think there's like this idea in polyamorous relationships especially where like there's this over processing, where it's like you're constantly processing or talking and how like burnout can happen in that way too. But and I think that's what you were talking about, Mo, maybe like this maybe it can be like this overcompensating or something, or this like anxious attachment, like not wanting to stop processing because that might feel scary, that might feel like disconnect or might feel like abandonment or all the things. So
Yeah, for sure. I think it is that is exactly it. It is a form of anxious attachment, right? Or insecure attachment, that fear that if I don't show up or if I don't, overcompensate is the word that I use.
Mhm.
If I don't do that, then everything's going to fall apart, right? I could lose this relationship, I could lose this job. And if that happens, then, like, because when we're in our trauma, we're not thinking about how unrealistic that sounds. And so we are operating from a place of like, we're just automatically doing it, right?
from our nervous systems or dysregulated nervous systems, like let's fight, let's
Yeah.
keep going, let's.
Yeah. Yeah. It's either
Mhm.
we're either fawning or we're fighting or, you know, even in the freeze state, which
Yep.
is a form of shutting down, there's like guilt and shame in that, right? Which is exhausting.
The freeze state is exhausting. I know it really is.
Yeah. It's
It's like you're just
paralyzing.
constantly, yeah, paralyzed and you're just constantly like idling. There's like a idling. It's definitely not rest for sure.
Mhm. It's not rest.
Yeah, it's like gas and brake and gas like, at the
Yeah.
same time.
And to Kelly's point, I think what she's talking about, what she's seeing, I mean, we kind of like digressed into like the trauma piece of like, marginalized communities and systemic trauma. And I think that what's happening now is more and more people are waking up to that systemic trauma in their bodies, how it's showing up for them. Like one example is women really like recognizing like how for so long we've been putting up with certain types of oppression, right? I think that is like a big one that's there's a major shift there, but not just women. Like there's so many groups of people that are recognizing the systemic trauma that I don't think a lot of people were aware of before. And so I think that more and more people are waking up to this now and recognizing it and seeing the things that are like unjust. It shows up as things, it shows up in our justice system first, but then when we start to realize how this is impacting every single one of us, more and more people are starting to wake up. And I think it's been happening in our culture for a really long time. It just goes in waves, right? And we're in a wave right now where people are just like exhausted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of like even want to say that I think because I mean that's not nothing new. I mean, especially to people of color, um, marginalized communities, whatnot. Like this is nothing new, right? This is something we've been experiencing, dealing with, talking about for so long. But now that I think maybe like the groups of people who are more in the more in the normative groups, right? White, heterosexual, um,
Yeah.
males, things like that. They're feeling it now, and so it's like, oh, oh, things are changing. It's like, no, things are happening. It's like, no, things have been happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty funny that, more people are waking up to it.
Wayne, you haven't said much today. Do you have
Oh,
do you have
like
any thoughts on this? I mean, I'm not trying to call you out.
oh no, no, I don't feel called out. No, honestly, I'm just listening a lot. Just thinking what I've been listening to. I think that burnout is so much so right now that I see a lot of people, even I see so many different social media posts and conversations around leaving the country and just moving out the country because just to move to a more relaxed environment or somewhere that's not just so much of a hustle and bustle and so. That's a lot of what I've been seeing recently, you know, like just people just kind of like fed up. And I also see the conversation around, so when Melissa said about people of color have been going through this already, I also see the conversation happening around like, a lot of people who are particularly white I guess the question is like asking like why is everybody else so silent right now? Like, why are the black people so silent around what's going on? And and I think to Melissa's point, because black brown people, because we've been going through and dealing with it for so long, it's like, what else is there to talk about? We can talk about it, but what are we doing at this point now? Like, how do we shift? How do we change things? And I think that's really where my mind is at. It's like, man, how do I get out of the burnout? Like, what do I do for myself to not feel? Because me and a lot of my clients are well of feeling the pressure and just feeling burnt out, and I see it show up as what you said, Mo, is fatigue. A lot of times in relationships, and just like and it's like, yeah, I see it.
And people take it out on their partners, right? Like they're feeling the fatigue, they're feeling the burnout. It's not necessarily coming from the relationship, maybe, but it's being taken out in the relationship, which puts this extra pressure on the relationship, right? And not I don't like to use the word unhealed, but I think a lot of that comes from folks who aren't aware that they're burnt out and aren't aware of, you know, what's going on for them. And so they're experiencing this burnout and they don't know who to take it out on. So it does get lashed out to the unsuspecting people in your family, in your closest circle. And like Kelly was saying, like not having the energy after seeing a bunch of clients. Um, right. So like imagine if you had seen a bunch of clients and you come home to your partner, right? Like that's what's showing up in our offices is people are showing up this way for their job. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be a therapist to be
Mhm.
giving a lot of yourself. And then you come home to a family and you don't have time for them or patience for them at that point. And but you still, like Wayne, you're saying like you have to get up and go and keep doing the thing, and something has to give at some point. And right now, people are thinking about where can they move to, um, because especially in a city like LA where it's so expensive, right? People that I talk to that are in LA are often like, it's just like get up and go to work and then come home and and do the same thing every day, right? That's not a quality of life that will make you happy and joyful, right?
Yeah.
In your body,
Hmm.
unless you really love your job, I guess. But
Yeah. And I know there's people out there who do love their job, but yes, I think that, and when, you earlier you were talking about the system, and I think that people are just now, the distractions can only last for so long until eventually that you start to see that it is the system, right? So, like it's not all the things that you create in your head, and it's not all, we can talk about, we talked about this before, talk about the symptoms all day, like playing whack-a-mole, but it's the system itself, and like it's changing the system, and or at least identifying the system, and even agreeing that hey, the system in itself is problematic, not all the things that come up from the system. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of psychotherapy is a form of gaslighting because we're like trying to do whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, let's look at this problem. How can we fix it? As opposed to saying, like, maybe we can't fix this. Maybe we just find ways to help you tolerate what's really happening in the world, right? Maybe we're finding help ways to like help you get through the day, given what's
And,
happening.
Yes, and thank you for that because I think that's probably more so true than that because, right, because really just giving people the tools to make it through the day is a lot of times more helpful than trying to fix this what systemic problem, right? It's like
Yeah.
how can like let me help you make it till tomorrow, and then tomorrow we'll revisit this and figure out how to make it through that day, and hopefully you get so good with the tools that we're giving you that you're able to do this on your own and work through when you start to feel your nervous system be dysregulated and you start to feel the burnout, like you can utilize the tools that have been given to you, like yeah.
Yeah. But therapy, and maybe I'm getting off topic here, but therapy, I feel like people come to therapy and they're like, our relationship's on the rocks. Will you help us fix it? And I think it is important for us to acknowledge the bigger, the macro, and how it impacts our relationship. And that a lot of that is out of our control. So while they come to our offices to feel better, we might not be, there might not be a fix, right?
Mhm. Actually, okay, to use that point to kind of bring it back to what we were talking about, because you reminded me of a question that I had. So I think sometimes clients come in, I think we've mentioned this, where like I don't want to say it's too late because I don't know that it's ever too late, but just when it's like kind of already crisis or moment, or they're just super burnt out, exhausted, or whatever.
Critical
Um,
mass.
Critical, yeah,
Yeah.
very critical. Some, not many, but I have had some come in prior and they're just like, hey, we just want to be ahead of the game. Like, we just want to get some counseling, prior, we're early in our relationship. We're familiar with therapy. We just want to like, do what we can to just build a good foundation for ourselves or whatnot. So those are the two kind of the extremes, but in between, I guess if either of you have an opinion on this, like when would you say would be a good time, or maybe not a good time? How do I ask this? Like how what would you advise like a couple would be like some good signs or something of like, okay, we've tried this, we've given this a good try between us. Maybe we can get some help here, some support here, where it's not critical, but also maybe they haven't quite done the whole like, you know, we just want to be ahead of the game thing either.
I know. How do you know? I mean, I think it requires a little, like some amount of self-awareness, right?
Hmm.
To be like, there's little pieces here that I'm not addressing, right? And before they become mountains, let's talk about it. And if the conversations don't go well, maybe it is, let's get some, outside help.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I think in those kind of situations, and even with some clients now, it feels more like a conversation, like I'm facilitating a conversation than I'm actually trying to do therapy. And it's interesting you bring that up, Melissa, because I just had a couple that came to me for sort of pre pre marriage therapy, and
Hmm.
I was really curious about that. I was like, why me? Why now? Why here? What is there? Are there specific fears? Who wanted to? And I was like, I said, I feel like this is something that I hear that I think people would go to their rabbi, or go to someone in their church, or go to, but I don't really hear a lot of things like that, sort of in just regular therapy, right? I don't hear of a lot of, I know I don't, a lot of people don't come to me. I don't hear of a lot of therapists talking about doing premarital counseling kind of stuff. And it was a really, I was like, okay, this is new and different. We've got to figure out what you're here for, how we're going to do this, what are we going to talk about, what's the goals. And so, I feel like I was just at the other end of that.
Hmm. It made me think, I'm not saying this is what you were thinking, but hearing that, what kind of how you said it made me think like,
What's really going on?
yeah, what's really going on? I know you say you're here for premarital, but what's
Yeah.
really happening? Because people don't just come just to be ahead of the game, not to therapy for the most part. Like you said, it's just kind of like maybe, in their, I don't know, some kind of like religious counseling or something. But I mean, I guess maybe if they're not any part of religion or something, where else would they go? Or like I said, if they already have they're like maybe really familiar with therapy already, they've done
Yeah.
some of their own therapy, they see the value in it, so they're like, hey, why don't we do therapy together? Just-
It was actually more that. That's actually more. But that made it difficult. It's like I'm certainly not trying to pick at anything or
Right.
make a problem so we have something to work with. It was a very interesting, it was
Yeah.
unusual, and it was an interesting, and it was pretty short lived. But yeah, that was, I thought all of those questions that you were just asking, I was like, huh,
Yeah.
when is it that
Well,
people?
that's a good point too that you said that it was pretty short-lived. And so, like, again, therapy, sometimes we see it as like, oh, you got to be here like every week for a year or something like that. And it's kind of nice that some people come in for short-term therapy or just like, yeah, we're not here because the problem really exists, but also we just want to, I don't know, just maybe kind of see a big picture ahead of the game or something.
I mean, I think
And
they came up with a lot of shared language.
mm,
We did a bunch of values work, which I love to do anyway, but I think it's really good to do with couples, and it was good. I think they sort of set up sort of their formula for having difficult conversations, and
that's so nice to hear.
it was pretty cool. And I thought of that couple when you asked that question, like
Hmm.
when is the right time?
Yeah, that's really nice. I wish that was just more available for people and
Mhm.
if like money wasn't a factor, insurance, like that would be really nice for people to have available of like you're in a new relationship or you're not in a relationship and you want to be or you're thinking about, whatever scenario you're in, but just like doesn't have to be because you're in crisis mode to come get therapy. That and then like another version of that I think about all the time is for parents, for parenting, like that would be really nice for therapy to be accessible.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
other than that, I don't really know how to answer that question. I think Mo kind of nailed it. Like there has to be self-awareness. You have to understand the value in it. Um, but it is, I mean, and I talk about this in consults. Like, therapy it's a lot of money and energy and time and work. And I think it's hard for people to want to just go and do that unless there's a problem. And sometimes it is a lot harder then, but
Wow,
they
Kelly, you
still
just
they
brought up
still
a
can
thought.
show up.
You just brought up something. I don't know if you were trying to, but I think I've felt this from clients too, that sometimes therapy, even in and of itself, can feel like a little bit of a job, of a task for people to
I
come to, even if they need it.
Oh yeah.
Oof, I've really, yeah, have felt that from clients and I feel for them on that. And I'm like, I don't know, how do we support that? How do we make that better? Because therapy should not feel like another burden or task or, you know, burnout. I mean, I know it can feel hard. There's like a difference. It's like, oh, this feels hard. We're working on some stuff, hard stuff is coming up. But when it just feels like, ugh, therapy, like, yeah, hmm. Doesn't feel very effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way. And I think that when you're doing like heavy trauma work, it's important to recognize that it is hard work, right? You're not just coming to therapy and like things are getting fixed and you're getting a band-aid and you're on your way. you're coming to therapy and your things are getting dug up that you might not have thought about in years, or like you're having these aha moments that aren't always great, right? And so it can shake up your world. Well, you were talking about affordability and insurance and things like that. And I think that's another piece of this. There's so many layers to therapy, and from one end of the spectrum for therapy and the way that it currently is being problematic, to the way that our healthcare system is also being problematic. And the fact that we're in a freaking recession right now, so people can't afford it, right? And so it's a luxury. It's a luxury item right now that many people aren't willing to pay for, right? Especially if it's a lot of work on top of how they're feeling, right?
Yeah. Okay, now it brings up too quick. This might take us into to the small tangent, but makes me think of two things. I mean, one other, I think, one in one scenario that I think the clients sometimes can feel burnt out by therapy or feels like a burden. I think, I don't know, sometimes maybe people come to therapy because they feel like they should be, or there's just kind of this like, I don't know. It's not a thing maybe that they really are ready for, but it's like, oh, we go, nowadays like go to therapy, do the thing. But maybe they're not yet ready or really wanting to be in therapy or to do the work. And so sometimes they can feel like a task or a burden if you're not feeling up for, for going there in therapy, right?
Mhm.
There's that one small point. But then it also made me think about, Mo, when you talk about affordability of kind of I think maybe a little bit of a issue that I had with traditional individual therapy, one-on-one therapy is like, okay, Dad will take you, is kind of doing the work alone, so-called, where I think it's so beneficial to the work being done in community or, with people and not just by yourself. So I'm thinking of like group group therapy. I mean, I think a lot of people don't, or people, I don't know about a lot of people, but I don't think we talk about like group therapy as an option like we do individual therapy. Or maybe it doesn't have to necessarily be therapy, but I think of like healing circles and whatnot, where that's done in community, that's done with people. You're not doing the so-called healing work by yourself. And so I think that can really add to the burnout potential, but then also can be a factor in affordability. Like, I think it could be more affordable when you do a group thing versus trying to just figure it out on your own financially on individual therapy.
Agreed. I don't know if there's a whole lot more to say about that. I'm feeling burnt out talking about it. No. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say is like when you're feeling burnt out, one of the things that
Yeah.
obviously works, and we know it works, is letting people know that you don't have the bandwidth for something.
Yeah.
Um, and if we don't, then we just dig ourselves more into that burnout.
And
Um,
then build resentment, and then we
yeah,
can't tolerate the resentment because it's a vicious
yeah.
cycle.
So all of that to say is, if you all are feeling burnt out at any point in time, this is a safe place to say,
Yeah.
I can't do it today.
Well, I did that last week, didn't I? I mean, whatever. I did that once recently. I was like, I can't. I got too much going on. Oh no, that was just with you and something else. But yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, really, having boundaries is actually really kind and humane, if you ask me. It may feel a little uncomfortable, but I think at least I like it when people, I like knowing the truth. It feels emotionally safe to me when I know people are telling me the truth. I don't have to try to read their mind or wonder if they really meant what they said or whatever. So,
yeah.
agree.
All right, y'all. Well, good chat.
All righty. Bye
Okay.
bye, Zoe. Let me see her cute little face again.
I
Yeah.
say bye to everybody.
Hi, Zoe.
Hi. Hi.
You're getting so big.
I know.
I'll be there today, Kelly, to your point about reading people's, having to read your clients' minds and try to pick through what they're saying. Yeah, I'll be there today.
Yeah, are you coming to the other call later? Okay, sounds good. All right, I love y'all all dearly.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. Shades of Pleasure podcast is currently unsponsored and is brought to you by Los Angeles Sex Therapy and Last Collective in partnership with Shades Therapy and Shades of Non-Monogamy. To support our endeavor so we can continue to bring this pleasurable content, please visit our Substack at pleasureforthemasses.substack.com. Thank you for listening, and until next time.